Welcome to Still Surviving and Walking in Your Purpose. I'm your host, Gigi Blackshear. Our guest has an amazing story of what it means to go from pitiful to powerful. Please welcome to our show, Mr. Richard Preston. Richard, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me.
Richard, please tell our audience, who is Richard Preston and what is your survival story?
Richard Preston is a sinner saved by God's amazing grace and mercy. I am an addiction expert by consequence. I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict of over 12 years. I have a passion for people who are going through addictions, and my gift is to help them.
Okay. You say over 12 years. That's a pretty good part of your life. You don't seem to be that old, so 12 years?
Well, thanks for the compliment. But I actually wallered in the addictions through alcohol, the progression of it, for over 3 decades.
Oh my.
I got sober at the age of 41. I am 53 years old now. So I had a lot of experience going through the addiction.
Started with alcohol?
It did. My first drink was at the age of 6. My parents were having a little cocktail party. I went in there and snuck me a little drink, and it was an instant love affair. Wow. I loved everything about it. I loved the smell. I loved the taste of it. And that started at the age of 6, a life of sneaking drinks. And then, just like most people know, it progressively got worse throughout the years.
Progressively got worse.
Yes, ma'am.
So, starting as early as 6.
Yes.
How fast did it progress? Because I'm wondering, at the age of 6, surely someone would have recognized or would have noticed. I know you said you started out sneaking drinks. Was there any point between 6 and adulthood? Was there no person that recognized that there was an issue?
Yes. Actually, I started drinking at 6, of course, and then it started elevating as I started going through school. But what hindered me is it never hampered my ability in school or anything. As a matter of fact, I excelled in school. I did well scholastically, and I even earned a scholarship to go to Jacksonville University. I was in the top 10% of my class at Sandalwood in 1982. And I scored a 1460 on my SAT test. Great question once again. I was dating a young lady who was going to the University of Florida, and she's one that really noticed it. And she told me, she said, one day you're going to be busting AA's doors wide open. And I saluted her with a drink of beer, and I continued to do what I was doing.
So would you have considered yourself an alcoholic at that point?
Well, the technical definition would be yes. But I didn't see myself as an alcoholic because I had the stereotype of an alcoholic as a bum in the gutter, somebody who wasn't excelling at school, somebody who was abusing people. I didn't have those characteristics. Another thing, Gigi, is I came from a loving family. I had a mother and a father in the home, 6 brothers, was very active in church. So I just thought I was partying and having a good time.
Yeah. And functioning well.
And functioning well.
And functioning
Or
well.
so I thought.
So you thought.
Exactly.
So you thought.
Or so I thought.
At what point did you move from alcohol to something else? Was there something a catalyst that drove you from alcohol to something stronger?
Yes. I started smoking weed, and then back in the 80s, cocaine was glamorized. It was the intelligent drug, the sophisticated drug. So I started dabbling in cocaine. One day, I couldn't find any cocaine, and somebody introduced me to crack.
Oh my.
And that is when I went from the frying pan to the fire. To the fire.
Yeah, yeah. Were you still able to function at that point?
You know, I was able to function a little bit, but not at optimum levels like I should be.
Right.
And just like anybody else that was smoking crack, if anybody knows anybody, it started doing the same thing to me.
Yeah.
I was spending all of my money. I was working at an engineering department. I was working in the engineering department of a company that manufactured ignition systems for aircraft engines.
Wow.
And I was actually certifying FAA parts to go on aircraft engines. And I was high on crack every day that I worked for that company, and I worked for them for 5 years.
I asked that question because I imagine that there's a lot of that going on every day. You know, people that have addictions, that are still able to function, still able to do their jobs, still able to produce whatever products they need to produce, but have those issues.
You could be sitting right next to an alcoholic, an addict, and not even know it, just like you said.
Yeah.
In the four walls of Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, we're always told to never take another person's inventory. But there are telltale signs of people using alcohols and drugs that I pick up on right away. As a matter of fact, I would always tell my boss, you know, I think that person, I always preface it with this, I hope I'm wrong.
I hope I'm wrong.
But this person is exhibiting all the characteristics of somebody using. And I was batting 100%.
Wow.
I was batting 100%.
Just from experience.
Just from experience.
Just from experience.
Just from experience.
So you were still able to function and did very well. Good jobs. Did you have a family?
I did. And I had a loving family. And this is another thing that we talk about, and when I'm out giving a speech or trying to help someone, enabling is a very bad thing when it comes to addiction. There is a fine line between enabling and loving someone.
Yes.
There's no other love like a mom and her child. I know that.
Yeah.
And typically, even today, when I go out to help someone, the mom is typically enabling that addict, because they don't want to see that addict stealing. They don't want to see that addict sleeping in a homeless shelter, sleeping in the woods, just as I did.
Right.
So they think they're helping them, and in return, they're actually making it worse.
By giving them money,
Giving them money, giving them a place to stay, giving them rides, even talking to them sometimes.
Yeah.
It came to a point with my mom, and I always laugh about it, you know, hey, this is Richard Click. She did get to that point where she stopped enabling me.
Yeah. And I imagine that's a hard place as a mother of two sons. You know, you want to be there for them. And that love that you have for them makes you want to help, makes you want to do everything you can to support them.
Yeah, because, you know, your mom always tells you, I love all y'all equally. I don't love one more than the other. So when I was down and out, she proved that. And she would help me. She would give me money. She would do whatever she wanted. I was her baby.
Yeah.
And it did me no good.
It didn't help you at all.
And of course, I ended up using her just like I used everybody else that came across my path. I stole from her, lied, manipulated, cheated.
Everything was a means to an end.
You better believe it. You better believe it.
Richard, what was the catalyst? What was the thing that, did you get to your lowest point? Is that the thing? What was the thing that allowed you to move from a life of addiction beyond that? What was the thing?
You know, a lot of people ask that question, and there's a myth, if you ask me, that people think that you should hit your rock bottom before you can get better. I had a lot of rock bottoms, but when I finally got sick and tired of being sick and tired, it really wasn't my worst bottom. I'd been trespassed at my mom's house. It was my 41st birthday, and I went to jail for trespassing. There's more to it in this. It's in my book. It's very well written at this point, and it comes across what happened. But I went to jail, and my brother showed up in the court proceedings. The judge was about to let me go, and my brother wanted him to lock me up and throw away the key. And he told the judge that I don't know him anymore. He's not Preston anymore. We weren't raised that way. The judge said this is highly unusual. Put us off until the end. And I got up and spoke to the judge, and I told him, I said, it's a myth and a misnomer that people that are addicted to drugs want to be, because I did not want to be. And I cried and I pleaded. My brother warned him. He said, he's a talker, Your Honor, be careful. But he gave me that chance, and he sent me off to rehab with a year's probation. Told me if I violated, he was going to lock me up and throw away the key.
Oh my.
The aha moment came, Gigi, is when I got in there. I had been to rehab several times. I call it the rehab roller coaster. But I went for all the different reasons of those other times, to save jobs, my daughter's mom, things like that. But this time I really meant it. And I wrote a letter to the judge thanking him for giving me an opportunity. And guess what? He wrote me back. And the judge and I became pen pals while I was in rehabilitation. He actually came to my graduation, and he wrote a letter on my behalf to get in the workforce as well. My. Yes.
Divine providence.
Exactly. And he is a good friend of mine to this day. He calls me now for prayer when his daughter has to be treated for a rare disease that she has. And he said something to me I'll never ever forget. He says, Richard, you renewed my faith in mankind.
How powerful is that?
Powerful.
Richard, what would you say to someone that may find themselves in that place that you were, dealing with addictions, wanting to be free? What would you say to that person?
The first tradition and the first step in getting treatment is honesty. So the first thing I would tell you is to thine self be true. I went for years in denial, and denial is an acronym for me that says, don't even know that I'm a liar.
Oh, say that again?
Don't even know I'm a liar. Denial.
Wow.
And it wasn't until I came to truth with myself that my life was a mess.
Yes.
That I needed help. Was I able to get help? I kept thinking of myself as a better addict than the next. I can do this, I can do calculus, I can do that. And I kept fooling myself, and it impeded my progress. I always knew that one day I would not be smoking crack. I didn't know how I had gotten caught up into that, but I loved to drink. And one was going along with the other. And it wasn't until I said, the party has just got to be up, was I able to find true serenity.
Party's over.
The party's over.
Richard, you have shared with us an amazing story. And I truly believe that because we know that those addictions are out there. We know that people are dealing with those very same things every day. So I know that in sharing your story, someone is going to be helped. There is someone that is sitting in their living room right now that's saying, how am I going to ever get out of this? And in sharing your story, you have opened the door for them to see that there is a way out. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. We're going to come back in just a few moments to hear more from Mr. Richard Preston. We are back with Mr. Richard Preston. Richard, you talked about the thing that turned your life around. Let's talk about addiction and what it took to get free of it.
Addiction is something more than the abuse of substances. Typically, when you're abused, once you've gotten to that point, your whole life has changed. When I go out and talk to groups or when people call my hotline number, I typically tell them the only thing you've got to change is everything. And I mean everything. Because the addiction part, you even get addicted to the chaos. I can remember getting fired up when I knew I was going into a crack house with no lights and no water, stealing. I got addicted to that. I got a rush with that as well. So to transform or to get clean, for lack of a better word, I needed to change Richard from inside out. Sort of like an onion, you know, the peeling, the layers.
Yes.
So I needed to peel away from that, expose that cruddy part and let it go away and let God into my heart, get spiritual, and just change my way of thinking.
When you say the only thing you need to change is everything, that's a tall order. For someone that's sitting in the middle of addiction, if you say to me, the only thing you need to change is everything, the first thing that comes to my mind is I can't do that. I don't have the ability to do that. I don't have the power to do that. Now you talked about allowing God to come in. Does faith play a part in?
It does. The rate of recidivism in addiction is out the door. I mean, it is literally, with some drugs, 95%.
Wow.
In other words, you only got a 5% chance of success. So it comes into play, changing everything more than you ever believe. A lot of people, just like in life, when people want to change things, but they want to hold on to something.
Yeah.
That something will keep you on what we talked about earlier, that rehabilitation roller coaster. Sometimes it's a loved one that you need to get rid of. Sometimes it's a friend. Most of the time it's friends. Sometimes you don't need money. You don't need a job. For the normal person, or the person who isn't addicted, that all sounds plausible. But once you've gone down that road that I took myself down, you must change everything.
I heard you say, road I took myself down. And that speaks to taking personal responsibility.
That's right. So to get help, that's the honesty part that's coming in. And to get help, there's a self-responsibility involved. You can have all the will in the world, you can go to all the meetings, read all the literature you want, but if you don't have that self-responsibility, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, you know, it's very cliche, but it is so very true, you won't succeed. All the times that I was unsuccessful in recovery, I tried to hold on to something. I tried to hold on to drinking. I tried to hold on to friends. I tried to hold on to going in the same places. Eventually, you keep going to the barbershop, you're going to get a haircut. And I got a haircut every time. So it wasn't until I changed everything in my way of thinking was I released from those demons.
It's really good to hear that you were able to take responsibility for your own life and make the necessary changes to get yourself delivered. Is that a good word?
Very good word.
Good word. Delivered,
yes, ma'am.
Delivered and healed and set free. The man that I see sitting before me, I see no semblances, no traces of any of that. Tell us what your life is like now.
My life is wonderful. I have a passion, once again, for helping other people that struggle with addiction, because a lot of people, just like I did, are able to string together 30 days of sobriety, 2 months of sobriety, but to live 12 years of something that you loved so very dearly it's hard. And I always tell people, you know, I'm great at mathematics, I can do calculus, theorems, all that kind of good stuff. But the hardest thing I ever did was to not drink. So I never lie or never give them a false sense of hope that it's easy, but I do tell them it can be done with self-responsibility and perseverance.
So Richard, you have detailed your story in a book. You share that with our audience?
Yes. The name of my book is Serenity Granted, Accepting Hardship as a Pathway to Peace. And the way I came up with the title, this is an interesting story in itself, is the guys that I used to see in the rehabilitation centers that were practicing a successful recovery, they all had a sense of serenity about themselves. My life was chaotic, theirs was serene. So the serenity prayer was something that we got up and recited every morning. When I was unsuccessful, I was just doing it out of repetition. When I started getting successful in recovery, it was because I was practicing it. God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and here's the big one, Gigi, the wisdom to know the difference between the two.
Yes.
And that was powerful. So my life is filled with a lot of miracles. It's a miracle that I'm even here to talk to you.
Yes.
In doing research for my book, I've been to jail 27 times.
Oh my.
I've tried to commit suicide 4 times. And I got into a habit of stealing dope from the dope dealers. I've gotten shot at, a couple of guns across the head, sticks across the back. And I truly believe God had something more intended for me to go out and share my story to help others that are in peril.
Well, it is very obvious that God did indeed have a plan and a purpose for your life. Please tell our audience where they can get your book and where they can get in touch with you.
Audience, you can get in touch with me. I have a helpline, and it is 904-923-HOPE. And you can call that number. It comes right to, I have a second cell phone. It comes right to that, and I will talk to you personally. If I can't help you, I'll steer you in the right direction. My book can be ordered off of my website, serenitygranted.net. Also on that website, you can request me for speaking engagements, chat with me online. And another thing I'd like everybody to know is you can buy the book off Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or you can buy it directly from my publishing company, which is Outskirts Publishing.
Richard, you have shared a wonderful story of redemption with us. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It has been such a blessing. We really appreciate you having you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Next, we're going to hear from Lequita Brooks with some additional resources. We are back with Lequita Brooks, licensed clinical social worker. Lequita, welcome to our show. After listening to Richard's story, for someone that is dealing with addictions, what kind of resources could you offer to someone?
Well, one of the resources would be the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and they can go to mentalhealth.gov. But besides that, I wanted to touch on something else that Richard said. When it comes to parenting, Richard said that at the age of 6, he started drinking, which meant that he had access to alcohol. And as parents, we just take for granted, oh, our kids know better. They're not going to go in our DVDs. They're not going to go in our alcohol. So we just assume they're not going to, versus us just being aware that kids are going to be kids.
Yes.
And even lately, we've had a lot of gun violence. So we just have to be very cognizant of those things and put them up.
Put them away from our children. Yeah. As parents, we have a responsibility to protect our children. And you know, we don't even think about it. We take it for granted, like you said, that our children know better.
Exactly.
They know what to do and what not to do. But kids will be kids. And they will get into things. And in Richard's case, you know, he was just being a kid, but he liked it. You know, and the thought process is, oh, you know, they would try it and it would be so terrible that they wouldn't want to do it again. But that's not the case. That wasn't the case. It started at such a young age. And because it started at a young age, he had a lot of years of dealing with that abuse. So as parents, we have to take responsibility to keep our children safe. You know,
Exactly.
it wasn't intentional on the part of his past parents. And that might have played into part of that enabling, you know. Children grow up doing what is mirrored in home, what's mimicked, you know, what they see their parents doing at times. So we have to be careful. They are like little sponges, you know, and they'll soak up, they'll take, you know, on whatever they see. So it's really good that you pointed that out. When you talk about addictions and getting help, one of the things that he talked about was getting to that place of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. That place of personal accountability. You know, how do you go from addiction, a life of addiction, and just wake up one day and say, no more, I can't do this anymore? What is that? Is that something that comes from the inside? Is that something that comes from the outside? What do you think?
You know, I would say that it definitely comes from the inside. As Richard said, he went to treatment after treatment, even to a point where his family was sick and tired of being sick and tired of him stealing, going from this professional man at an engineering firm, just doing really great things in his life. An alcoholic, but very functional. So it actually took Richard to say, you know what, I need help. And then the second step was, what do I need to do to get the help that I need? And even with listening to Richard's story, he said that he went to treatment multiple times.
Many times.
And not until he was ready, and as some would say, good and ready, did he actually make that change in his life. And I want to say it was that serenity prayer. And he was able to observe the individuals at the rehabilitation facility he was at and to see, you know what, they have something that I want.
Yes.
I want that. And once he had a bite of that, it was like he was addicted to getting what they had.
Yeah.
And that's what he said. That's when he said it was serenity.
Yeah.
And that's what he titled his book.
Yeah. He didn't have that peace. And
Exactly.
he recognized it. That's powerful. That he saw something in someone else.
Exactly.
You know. And that's the other piece. As we live out our lives, we not only have responsibility for ourselves, but there are other people that are watching us, you know, and that may be looking at our life for inspiration, for some sense of something better. They need to see something better. I'm a firm believer that if I can see it, I can be it. And he was able to see in the lives of others that peace that he craved, that he wanted to have in his own life. And we are living examples, you know, and that's why we have to live our lives in such a way that it not only is good for us, it helps us and it supports us, but that it's a good example, that it shines some light for others. And that's what Still Surviving and Walking in Your Purpose is about. It's about showing those examples so that others can see that you can go through terrible things, you can have trials and tribulations, but that you can come out of those things and that you can be better on the other side. You can have a better life on the other side. Richard shared with us a powerful, powerful story, and it was such a blessing that he didn't give up in the midst of it, that he was able to make his way to deliverance and healing. Lakita, thank you so much for sharing with us on the show.
Thank you, Gigi.
After listening to Richard's story and listening with Lakita, it's just so powerful to know that you can go through really bad things, that life can throw you curves, And there can be calamity and there can be tragedy, but you can also find help, healing, and deliverance. Lequita, thank you so much for coming on our show and sharing your wisdom with us. We really appreciate it. We'll be back in just a few moments with final thoughts. Richard Preston shared with us a powerful story of what it means to live a lifetime of addiction, but he also shared with us what it means to be delivered and set free. If you or someone you know is dealing with addiction, please know that there is help to be found. You can reach out to Richard, you can go to his website, you can get his book, or you can use the resources that was provided by Lequita Brooks. Thank you for watching our show.